The news is back, and so are we. I'm John. That's Josh over there. There's Dave.
Hello.
Before we dive into this week's headlines, I want to have a quick update on something we talked about last week about horses, hot horses in the Rennek. How the horses that pull the carriages, well, they're standing in this heat. The heat wave that seems to have finally broken today. We had some thunderstorms a couple of hours ago. Maybe this is the end. I don't know, but it's been hot for a month, 6 weeks. I have stopped counting, but anyway. Controversy about the fact that the horses are allowed to stand there, and are they suffering, and is it dangerous for the horses and whatnot? And I found a statistic I was missing last week. The current law as it's written says that between the hours of 1 p.m. and 5 p.m., if the temperature is 28 degrees or above, the horses have to be, evacuated, removed from the square. They can't stand there. They have to go. So I don't know where they go, but they cannot stand in the Rennek between 1 and 5 if it's 28 degrees or hotter. It's back in the news this week because people are actually informing the prosecutor of possible animal abuse violations. Is it animal abuse to make a horse stand there? Let's say it's before 1 o'clock and it's 35 degrees as it has been recently. Is that animal abuse? They're not breaking the law, but is it animal abuse, Dave? Is it animal abuse?
Didn't you ask me this last week?
No. Just pretend. If I did, just pretend I didn't. But no.
Okay. Yeah. It's horrific. Go horse.
Yeah. Last week we all agreed. We took a brave stand against animal abuse. I know.
Yeah.
But the law says 1 and 5 p.m. So if it's before 1 or after 5 and it's too hot, are they breaking the law? Is it animal abuse?
Well, many laws are difficult to enforce.
A gray area here.
Badly enforced, aren't they?
Josh?
Well, there might be the thing that even though the temperature might be higher before 1 o'clock, it's closer to the time when the horses came out of their cool nighttime abode, so therefore they're not yet suffering so much from that heat, even though that heat is higher.
I want to know where they go. I mean, they can't go in the shade of the plantia. They can't just go take a break. They can't do. Where do the horses go? They don't have a barn or something
That's
nearby.
a good question.
We see them on the streets sometimes, right? Going home, to or from home.
Yeah, what do they do? Get the tram home?
I don't know. Where can you get this? Where can you take your horse?
They're enormous.
When I first lived here, I lived on Dwuga, and they, I think a lot of the horses and the people who have the horses and carriages have some kind of stables up beyond Novi Klepage. So
makes sense.
About 1-2 a.m. You'd hear clip, clop, clip, clop, clop.
It's a lovely sound, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Making their way up Dwuga, off for their...
Part of the atmosphere. As they're sweating to death, it's a lovely part of the atmosphere.
You really love horses, John, don't you? It's
interesting, isn't it? It's interesting.
It's the frontiers.
Reminds you of John Wayne, doesn't it?
But I think I said last week, I very much resent people who take rides in those carriages. I think it's ridiculous. I think you look ridiculous, and I think you're just foolish.
All right, calm down, princess.
Yeah, I just gets on my nerves. I don't know. It's a thing. Anyway, let's move into this week. Newsweek. This week on Newsweek.
But
yeah. Do you think if you see something on Newsweek, does that mean you take it more seriously? Is that a sign that this is a thing? This is a real issue if it's on Newsweek?
Don't really browse Newsweek that often, to be honest with you.
Exactly.
You sent me this link, and I remember thinking distinctly, "Oh my God, I've seen this exact story 2 months and 2 months before that, and 2 months before that." And there's absolutely no new details at all, apart from the fact that.
Let me tell people what we're talking about here. This pops up in the Polish press quite a bit, but I have not seen this in Newsweek until now. The headline. I'll read the headline. It says, "Will the U.S. build army bases in Poland? The Poles seem to think so."
Is this I think, every year the Irish Taoiseach is sent off on St. Patrick's Day to the White House. We're the only country in the world that has a guaranteed audience with the president every year and back home.
It's true. He's always there on St. Pat's Day. Yeah.
And we make a great sham of that this time the Taoiseach will convince the American president to allow all the undocumented Irish to become American citizens overnight. And of course, both sides know that's never going to happen. So they do the dance, they give the shamrocks, and away they go. Is this the same thing, only with missiles?
Is Boston rammed to the gills with undocumented Irishmen?
It may be.
You're sending not just your good people, but your...
He's a rat!
They're not sending their best. They need to build that wall in Boston.
Yeah.
Mariusz Błaszczak.
Heart and soul of that sea.
A good Polish name. He's the Polish defense minister. He comes back from Washington, D.C. from a meeting with high-level people there. And the Polish defense minister, Mr. Błaszczak, is convinced that talks are at a, quote, advanced stage.
But this is what I'm saying. Is this just something that we should know that, you know, it's just one of those things they have to keep asking, you know, it's just this dance. No, there's no real intention for Donald Trump to sanction such a thing.
I think this is very much
I'd be very surprised politically at the moment if this was to happen. I'd put it that way.
I think this is, you know, absolutely like realpolitik in action, or however you pronounce that word, in the sense that it's in America's interest to keep dialogue open on this subject without actually necessarily making a strong commitment, because as long as there's talk about it, it's in the press, there's stuff issuing from the White House or whatever, then similarly in Moscow, there will be, shall we say, appropriate or proportionate saber rattling in response. It's all it's what's kind of détente is all about, really, and it always has been.
So better to keep it alive as a possible thing to keep the other side.
Absolutely, like rather than take maybe the option of previous White House incumbents and say like we are definitely not going to do anything like that, and thus giving carte blanche to the.
Be vague. Be
vague, and this.
No definitive answers.
Yeah.
Well, on previous shows we did, I think we were talking about NATO. I think I made my position.
I was in favor of the base, and you were against it.
I am under no circumstances am I in favor of American troops being stationed in Poland.
We mostly want your missiles, your best ones.
Yeah, but no military presence whatsoever. I think it's ridiculous. I don't think we have to cover this ground again, but.
But I mean, we know.
Disagree with me? Anyone want the?
Well, we spent like 20 minutes disagreeing about it. I mean,
yes or no? Do you want the American military presence here?
Yeah, I don't care.
Why don't we get the Irish military presence here?
I'm sure they'd come if you asked them.
Or even an Irish.
Hey guys, you want to come over? Yeah.
Paramilitary president. Oops. Step too far.
You had to go there.
Yeah. But of course, the fact is that a very, very large number of Polish people are in favour of American military presence here, because a very large number of Polish people are genuinely worried about Russia's aspirations, possibly.
Why don't you call your EU army?
Oh, why don't you
get Brussels on the phone to sort this out for you?
I refuse to have the exact same conversation we had 3 weeks ago. It was fun though last time. I think our listeners can go back. Which episode was it that we debated the shit out of this one?
Yeah, we did, but anyway, it's in the news. It's going to be in the news probably forever, without a definitive answer. But we'll see what happens. But again, talks at an advanced stage.
Advanced. Okay.
Whatever that means. Good. Moving on, locally here in Krakow, something in the news got my attention this week. Now, don't laugh when I read this headline here. Don't laugh. But this is actually a real thing. This is in motion. I don't think it's going to come to. I don't think it's going to become an actual law, but there are people pushing it. The 13th dzielnica, or the 13th kind of district of the city, which is Podgórze, representatives of that district on the city council are pushing for a ban on alcohol sales from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. Now, this would apply to retail establishments, corner shops and whatnot, not necessarily to restaurants and bars. But they're pushing for this.
I didn't see it as well.
Any chance? Yeah, this is a thing. They've already been defeated once, but they're trying to get some allies on board.
What kind of madness is this?
Wait a second. Let me just stop there. Well, I guess I know where you stand. It's madness. Josh, any chance that an alcohol ban?
I came here to get away from closing time.
Yeah.
Any chance we could see this, you think? Or is
Who are these mad lunatics running the city council? What's going on? I feel like founding a grassroots political movement right here.
Clarification for a moment. So this is the, shall we say, the district council in Podgórze that is pressing for this. Is this something that they want to impose on the
citywide?
Okay, so it's not sufficient that they just want to kind of like make Podgórze a semi-dry district, but they actually want to impose this on the whole of
10 p.m.
Okay.
Yeah, but this could become a kind of infectious fun sponge that brings the rest of the councils around, into madness.
Wait, Dave, aren't you the same guy who's in favor of the Sunday shopping ban?
No, I'm not in favor of the Sunday shopping ban.
Are you sure about that?
No, I said I had been. What are you talking about? When did I say that? I said I'd been kind of beaten down and conditioned by it. You know,
Josh,
that wasn't like causing me immense hardship because I had a Shabka open.
Supporters in this room.
Well, I'm certainly not on a Sunday.
Okay, then I must be imagining.
Pretty sure you were.
wait a second.
Pretty soft on it.
Wait, God, I can't remember anybody's position. I have to go back
I remember my
Go back and
position.
listen to the tape on that one. Come on, this alcohol ban. This is not as crazy as it sounds. As usual, I'm gonna take the minority position here. The problem is not with alcohol per se; it's the problems that it attracts. The people who live upstairs from a Żabka, the people who live next door to the 24-hour alcohol shop. Right? They have a right to some peace and quiet at 2 a.m, and they don't necessarily have to listen to some. Drunks singing outside their window because there's a corner shop that attracts this element 24 hours a day.
But
What about them?
What if the drunk guy is a professional singer?
Okay, maybe.
Well, I think one of the things here is that there's more than one type of person who buys alcohol from an alcohol shop, regardless of the time of day or night. And from my, casual, random observations, the people who we would classify as alcoholics is that, and if we include homeless alcoholics in those, is that generally they're unconscious by 10 p.m. and they're very often looking for their first drink at around 6 a.m. So it won't do anything to them. What it will affect is the possibly more normal citizen type person.
It will instantly end Krakow as a fucking tourist destination. Let's get real about this. What are you on about?
You can go to the bar right across the street from the Żabka, by the way, probably, and drink all you want. We're talking about I guess I call it package stores, or you know.
Oh, right. It's only in shops. You're not talking about closing restaurants and bars. I thought that's what you meant.
I said that like 3 times.
You said an alcohol ban.
An alcohol ban in shops.
I panicked.
You did somewhat panic there, yeah. I think.
It's okay.
I know. Let me back up and clarify this.
I don't even live in Boguja.
For Dave. Listen carefully, Dave. Alcohol ban on shops, not restaurants and bars, on shops.
You said alcohol ban. I panicked, okay?
Okay.
Just don't use such inflammatory language.
So does that change your opinion on this? Is it okay to ban alcohol sales in shops in those hours?
I've always liked the way you can buy drink anywhere. Come on, I mean, look, if it's legal, it's legal. What's the point in restricting
What's wrong with
drinking
telling
hours?
people if you need booze at home, God damn it, go out and buy it before 10 o'clock.
What time?
We tell the whole country to buy their shit on Saturday because there's no shopping on Sunday. The whole country, alcohol, not only alcohol, everything, all food. Sunday closed, and the whole country has to follow this rule. What's wrong with telling people to get their booze before 10 o'clock?
I'm struggling to think of a time where I've bought drink
when was the last
after
time you
10
bought
o'clock.
booze between 10 and 6 in a store?
Do you know what? I honestly can't remember, and it's not an issue. Like,
it's kind of a pathetic sign.
Because I drink wine at home.
Just offended Josh. Sorry, Josh.
I drink wine at home, and Carrefour's closed anyway at 9 o'clock, so I have to go before then.
Josh, get in here.
Well, I mean, it hasn't happened so much recently, but there's been plenty of times in the past where I've been out with friends, we've had a few drinks,
Yeah.
decide to head back to the
What about
apartment.
young people, John?
Because there's stuff that you can do in an apartment that you can't, so easily do in a bar. And you want
Put some music over that, Josh.
Well, I wasn't just thinking of that, but and you want a glass or two of something to while away the evening, and so you pop into an alcohol shop at be 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m.
All those people that are inconvenienced by the drunk magnet of a corner store need to just suck it up and shut up so Josh can buy a bottle of wine at midnight. Is that your answer?
A drunk magnet. They live in the city centre. Anyway, it's loud.
I live in Kazimierz. All the all-night alcohol shops are kind of in places that are very noisy anyway.
Disagree. Overruled.
on what authority?
I don't know. Have none.
Tin pot dictator.
I think I've said all I can say on this one. Don't say that word to me again.
Yeah, next
Anyway,
item.
Alcohol ban is banned on this show.
We'll keep you posted on the idea of an alcohol ban, but doubt very much it's ever going to see.
You should move to Kansas or whatever, John. Find one of them little dry towns. Just sit around.
Kansas.
Wait, don't they have dry towns in Kansas?
Yes. Don't they have dry counties in Ireland?
No.
No.
Well, apparently,
What's a dry county?
I don't know.
Dallas County is a dry county.
There are dry counties.
They're
all over the place in America.
Wait, even in Ireland, can for example, Sunday morning at 9 o'clock, can I buy booze?
No, sadly you cannot.
All right.
That was said with feeling, wasn't it?
So, what's the story? So there are limited. There are
Yeah,
restrictions.
we have laws just like the ones you're describing.
There are restrictions. Do you know what they are, more or less?
Yes, they're left-wing attempts at controlling the population,
but I
John.
mean,
I've been surprised to find you in favour of
I don't mean your
such,
commentary. I mean the
such
actual
socialist
days and
policies,
hours.
John. I
What are the
really
days-
am
what are the days and
disappointed
hours?
in you, you know.
Do you know the days and hours of the limits on?
So you can't sell alcohol in the shop after the pub closes. I think is still the rule. Which could be. Oh no, I think they changed. I think they changed it down to 10 o'clock, like they're proposing here. Everyone gets their weird laws like that from Ireland. You know,
So do you
smoking
still have
bans.
pub closing times then?
Yeah,
What time is it?
it's 11:30 and 12:30 in the summer and 11:30.
Do you think that promotes binge drinking in the hour before?
Absolutely, it does. Yeah, I always said that. I really noticed that when I moved to Krakow. That even though the bars were busy, there's so many people out drinking because they're spilling out in different waves all night, going home whenever they want to, up to 3, 4, 5 in the morning. The streets and the McDonald's, they never get crowded with that extremely drunk. Everyone's had 10 points. The fight starts. You know, it seems to work better.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely.
People are going to drink anyway. People love drinking. You know, wasn't beer currency for the ancient Egyptians? Dave, you're so wise.
Salt for the Romans, beer for the Egyptians. Is that right? Was it beer for the Egyptians? That doesn't sound right to me.
Egyptians and beer. Yeah, no, that's not a sentence.
Something's off a little.
Yeah.
I'm 100% right about that. You can even Google it live on the KrakCast. I'll just accept your apology by email, perhaps.
For somebody else to check.
That's EPA, isn't it? Egyptian Pale Ale. Yeah.
Check it out. Check it out.
Let's leave the booze behind us. Unfortunately for Dave, we're going to leave the booze behind us and move on. How do you transition to a story about Nazi concentration camp guards? I don't know if there's a good way to.
By using your words like you just did.
All right. Well, listen. Two stories we're going to combine into one. Last week, something popped up. We thought we were done with this. We talked about this a few weeks ago.
You thought the Nazis were
We
done.
thought we were done with this, but here it is again. I suspect we'll be talking about this forever as well. Media mentions of Polish death camps happened again last week on Fox
Oh,
News.
you did a little sideways shuffle there. I thought we were going to talk about the
guard.
the guard.
Well,
yeah.
but, yeah, we're going to go there. But
but
first, we're talking. It was.
I need
mentioned
our
on the
listeners
Fox-
to know my glib comments were about the lead up to one of the last Nazi guards being caught, and not the,
get there in a second.
the
I
story
have
that we're about
I
to
have a
discuss
theory
now.
about. I'm going to butt in here, actually, John, because
Go ahead,
you
Josh.
flagged up this story. I saw this on the news as well. That Fox News, that famously non-partisan network
down the middle.
in the United States,
Sanitize us.
referred to this story of this Polish-born, but what is now Ukrainian, who must have been a young chap, who
Born in 1923.
who allegedly worked in one of the Nazi death camps.
Well, it wasn't a death camp. It was a. Okay.
It was
we
a
get into some-
forced labour camp.
Yeah, we get into some awkward terminology here, but it was.
But
a death camp.
has finally been deported from the US, and Fox News referred to him as being a guard in a Polish death camp.
Yeah.
And this was not just in words, it was also in the little ticker tape banner that went along the bottom of the screen. Someone grabbed screen grab of this, and outrage duly ensued. And Fox have apologised and made sure that they won't say this again in future. I can't help thinking that I know plenty of people from all persuasions think that Fox is run by brainless rednecks, but I suspect that this may have been not totally accidental and might even possibly have been deliberate trolling of the usual suspects.
I'm going to go a different way. I'm going to say that this is not an editorial decision. There's no producer that said put Polish death camps. I'm guessing some intern on the graphics machine was handed a note that said, we need something for the story. They slap it together, and he puts Polish death camp. Just as in the previous examples of this that we talked about last time we talked about it on the show, this is more stupidity and ignorance than maliciousness.
Do you not think it was Russian collusion?
They're missing the strong hand of Bill O'Reilly.
Into that. I don't know.
It was like the old Bill.
Yeah, it's just stupidity, and again, not excusing it at all, but it's just stupid.
But it's great, actually. I mean, it's great for Fox. It's great for the Polish government as well, because it keeps the whole topic, like at the front. There's talk, isn't there, about kind of an alleged $100 million lawsuit or fine or whatever. I don't know, whatever it is.
good luck with that.
I mean, of course, that's never going to happen. But it keeps the whole story kind of spinning around. And to be fair, although I don't agree with the extent of that recent Polish legislation, I think that it's a perfectly reasonable thing to, ensure and keep on emphatically ensuring that people don't refer to these camps as Polish death camps.
Josh is referring to legislation passed by the Polish government that criminalizes the use of the term Polish death camp, even outside of Poland.
Right.
I found Jonathan's linguistic kind of interpretation of that very interesting when we had to do them.
Yes, that was very good.
If Barack Obama, the famous, eloquent Barack, can make such an error, it's one that's just kind of cropped up the odd time. Interesting to see that you think it might have been intentional trolling.
I'm curious to know what kind of coverage this gets outside of Poland. Here in Poland, this touches a raw nerve every time. No matter how many times it's used, we always hear about it.
That's another problem with that law. It made it now every time it's said, it's
exactly.
it's
did
fucking
people in other
noisy.
countries hear about this? Did this even register on the radar anywhere else besides Poland? I don't think so. So we get a.
Well, it's hard to say, isn't it? Because we live here. So
we get a distorted view of just how big a deal this is.
That's a good point, Josh.
Yeah, fair enough.
The answer to that is we don't know.
And it may be actually in the rest of the world if it does pop up, fifth or sixth down the list of headlines, like, oh God, well, they're still complaining about that.
So tell me about the
really
guard,
Well, exactly. This appeared on Fox News in the context of a story that broke last week. There was a man. He's ethnically Ukrainian, but when he was a young man, he was part of Poland. Of course, Poland's borders shifted after he grew up. His name, I'm going to mispronounce this. It's Yakiv Pali. I don't know the proper pronunciation, but Yakiv Pali, 95 years old last week. After the war in 1949, he immigrated to America. Now, I have no idea how a young Ukrainian man at that time, 4 years after the war, kind of waltzed right into the United States. When one of the questions specifically on the not naturalization.
A bit suspicious at the border.
One of the questions asked was, did you have any part in the Nazi regime between 1933 and 1945? And a yes to that is like an automatic rejection. So he lied and got through. I don't know the circumstances of
that. Was still on the form when I went to the US in 2002.
See, it's a specific question.
Oh yeah, it's something you never forget having to take.
Is that what applied to Werner von Braun as well when he was helping?
Well, he had certain
space
skills,
program.
Maybe, but, it's a different story.
I don't get it.
But anyway, one way or another, he was accepted as an immigrant, eventually naturalized, became a U.S. citizen in Queens, New York, and just last week he was deported to Germany. Now, there's a bit of a backstory here that makes it interesting, gives it a Polish connection. The order for his deportation was made in 2004, 14 years ago. But Germany, up until now, has refused to accept him, saying that they had nothing to do with him, right? Poland refused to accept him. Same thing. He's not ours. Ukraine refused to accept him. He's not ours. So 3 countries said he's not. Each of these countries had an argument to make based on,
Are you telling me they didn't want the 90-year-old Nazi?
Yeah, exactly. Why would they refuse him? And Germany, I think part of it's kind of being embarrassed into accepting, responsibility, maybe trying to improve relations with the current American administration. Who knows? Wow, where to start? How many Nazis are out there left to catch? And are we kind of, is he being held up as something that he may or may not have really been? And I'm not suggesting he was on the right side of things, but are we hunting Nazis, or are we dragging people who were kind of conscripted into service at the time under difficult circumstances?
Well, do we have any details on what he's
He was a guard at a camp called Travniki. Am I saying that right? Let's say Travniki, which is a labor camp. Yeah, not in a decision-making capacity, not an officer. Just he was a 20.
He's 95, isn't he?
He's 95. So during the war, he turned 20 in 1943. So after the final solution became policy, he was at most 21 years old. Really,
not many Nazis left.
Not many Nazis left. No, but it's just awkward. And does Poland have? Are their hands clean? Polish hands clean? Ukrainians hands clean? How can they say this is not one of theirs?
Which one?
Well, pick one.
Well, Poland
points to the map and says, "Look, that's not in Poland anymore." And they're right.
Yeah.
Ukraine points to the map and says Ukraine didn't exist. So
Isn't there a little bit of an inherent contradiction in your position, though? Because you criticise your own government for letting him in and giving him a passport. Surely at that stage, he's your problem.
Well, when he committed the crimes, he was not an American citizen. So
Yeah, and you finally got him deported, what, like, how many years later?
They deported him on a
Well done.
stretcher, as far as I recall.
95 years
He'll die in a hospital in Germany, and
So
what's
maybe
the
really the important question is healthcare in Brooklyn better than the healthcare that he would get in Germany?
Have you seen this thing, Hunting Hitler, on the History Channel?
it sounds like a History Channel show.
It's like a double act.
all
Hunt,
Hitler all
Hunt
the time.
and Hitler.
Oh god, it's got this big special forces bro, and it's got an ex kind of head of the fucking CIA or something now. Like it's all these macho military types reconstructing like a CSI style investigation on the death of Hitler. And this dude, every 5 minutes, he goes, "This is the way we got USB, in Afghanistan, man." I mean, like, it's just this constant graphic overload and talking heads getting intense. But, I think there's definitely a bit of an obsession with the Nazis, kind of like,
Of course there is.
and this is, maybe it is just this wellspring of interest. Because everyone knows the last few years, the last Nazi's going to die pretty shortly.
Well, the Nazis, like literally for my entire lifetime, and I think, well, obviously for you guys as well, the Nazis have always been the ultimate baddie. They had terrific uniforms, especially the SS.
Hugo Boss.
They have no redeeming qualities whatsoever.
Right from central casting, they play the role of the bad guy.
Merciless, kind of, all-conquering, ruthless.
The ultimate movie bad guys as well. We've had so many, not to be glib, like, of course, it was 70 years ago. Come on, people. Like, but, the iconography of it all is just like, is it drawing us back in? Like, because I was watching this show, Hunting Hitler, and actually, I started Googling a few things, and it kind of starts off with the interesting fact that was well reported in The Guardian and other places. I found some links I'll put up with the episode. Hitler's skull had a bullet wound in it, and it was matched by his dentist. But his dentist drew a sketch of his teeth on the site of the. It was a bit of a weird way of doing things, and they just decided, that looked like his teeth. So the dental exam wasn't done properly, and the evidence was that the Russians took the skull back, which was presumably Hitler's, where he shot himself in the head. And in 2009 in Connecticut, they, with a collaboration with the Russian government, they tested the skull, and it turns out it was a female skull. So it's quite possible.
Well, he was a vegetarian, so perhaps though he had some kind of hormonal imbalance. But the other thing, of course, about the other thing about Nazis, of course, is that you're in absolutely no danger of them ever being, shall we say, rehabilitated in history. And so,
the ultimate fucking scum.
You can kind of, there's plenty of people that you could loathe in the past, and then suddenly you have to suddenly like them because it was politically incorrect to not do so. But like, really, Nazis are just wrong on every level.
Serious question in the context of these, the Nazis being punished for their war crimes and whatnot. Serious question. Okay, this guy was 21 years old at a camp, and here we are now 73 years later, and he's being prosecuted for the war crimes. Let's say Jews were taken on a train to a camp. Is the engineer of that train a war criminal?
I don't want to play this hypothetical game.
Well, no, it's a fair question. Where's the cutoff point?
Well, I mean,
is the people who switch the tracks at the train station, are they war criminals?
I mean,
are they Nazis?
It's all done now, isn't it? I mean, a lot of them got away.
Well,
let's be clear on that.
A lot of them
more got away than were brought to justice.
Comfortable lives in West Germany, in America, in South America, and elsewhere. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. In Brazil, where Hitler may have escaped.
But you say it's all done. It's in the past. This guy's 95 years old, being dragged out on a stretcher to face justice in Germany. So apparently,
I don't care. I never said that I had an opinion one way or the other. I didn't say I think he should be brought to justice. In fact, I said he's America's problem. You should have just let him die in hospital and not made a big deal about it, John.
The people who made those SS uniforms, are they war criminals?
Who was making a big deal about it, though? The Americans have been trying to get him deported for how long? Why not just let him die quietly somewhere?
That's another argument. Is he too old for jail? Is he too old for justice?
You're right. I agree with you.
Well, almost certainly he's not going to stand any kind of trial.
He's just going to be on a hospital bed in Germany somewhere.
So what are we doing here? Is this just for show, just to make somebody feel better about fighting the wrongs
We never
of the
disputed
past.
that. That's why we started talking about is Hitler alive, because we didn't really disagree about anything essentially when we started conversing about it.
So why-
There's nothing that devil's advocate against in this case. I don't think.
Well,
John.
no, but why are these countries going through the trouble and expense and the hassle of doing all this?
It's weird. I don't know. Like honestly, he's
box ticking,
95.
isn't it?
Who cares? Like I mean,
It's box ticking, isn't it? It's like, we are still aware of this, and we are.
don't get me wrong. Though I was into it in this, like back in the 70s when Mossad was hunting them all down and wiping them out, like in their rich, comfortable lives. Didn't see that coming. Bang! That was cool. I was all up for that,
Yeah,
But
we-
95-year-olds in hospital beds, it's a bit like kind of.
I read the Odessa
What year are we
File.
talking about?
It was like Frederick Forsyth.
Oh, that's a great
What
book.
a great book, yeah.
That's the best
was like, what,
Foresight
19
book, and that's saying something.
1972, 1973, that's like more than 40 years ago when, our man who's just been extradited or, sent back to Germany was my age now. I don't know.
Is Hitler still alive?
He would be 130.
So probably not.
No, but you got to check
it's-
out.
He's really pissed that he can't claim to be the oldest living person because he's Hitler, and that
You got to
would kind
check
of blow
out.
his
Come
cover.
forward.
You got to check out the Timeline documentary about Hitler's death on YouTube. Timeline are very credible. I think they're associated with the BBC, or possibly they pull documentaries from different places. It's fascinating, and I know I sound like a lunatic talking about the History Channel and did Hitler, but all I'm saying is the forensic evidence doesn't support the conclusion that Hitler definitely died in that bunker by suicide. Feast on that.
I thought it was poison anyway, not shooting himself.
I think Goebbels poisoned himself and his family, and Hitler and
Oh,
Eva
Mrs.
Braun.
Goebbels was a piece of work, wasn't she? Like injecting the children.
Well,
or whatever.
that goes without saying.
There's a 20-something part documentary called "The World at War,"
It's fascinating,
Oh,
brilliant.
yes.
And
I
this
think
is-
it's 21 parts.
and this is still it was produced in the early 70s. I think this is
Yeah.
still, in my opinion,
Legendary
the
on
gold standard for World War II documentaries, narrated by Laurence Olivier. It is the best, and because of when it was produced, they have interviews with any number of people who were there when these events took place, participants on both sides, including several officers in the Wehrmacht.
Right.
Now, here they are sitting down for interviews in 1972, 73, something like that. And they gone back to, a normal life, a civilian life. And those people, if they were alive today, would be hunted as Nazi war criminals.
Well,
They sat down for interviews.
Wehrmacht is kind of different from the. Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. It's SS, isn't it?
Well, we're just talking about a kid who was 20 years old, conscripted into service, and
but
he's treated as the
allegation
evil
is
monster now.
The
Yeah, but this guy had to have been either SS or Wehrmacht, like you said. Otherwise, they wouldn't.
I mean,
wouldn't go to all this trouble.
What seems to be at least a little bit puzzling to me is the idea that someone that young would be anything more than at the very most an SS private. I mean, I don't. It's
Yeah, I think at that point the SS was put in charge of the camp system, so yeah, he would have been SS in some capacity. But still, he's low ranking. And again, the documentary, The World at War that I mentioned, they're talking to decision makers.
Well, there was
yeah.
Wasn't there an element as well that because have you seen the Netflix documentary about the filmmakers, the American directors, John Ford and
Three who came back. Also.
three who came back? Yeah, and can you think of the other directors' names?
It was Houston and Ford and William Wyler.
Nicely done, Josh. I knew you'd have it. And that's just brilliant.
Frank Capra. It was more
and
than
Frank
three,
Capra.
wasn't it?
Yeah, it was 4 or 5 of them. Sorry, Netflix. You can sponsor us if you don't like our.
We should have really paid instead of Pirate Bay. Yeah.
But anyway, the point being that these guys at enormous personal risk went embedded basically with all that heavy old movie equipment and produced all this unbelievable raw footage, which makes up the core of those brilliant documentaries, and has allowed us to fortunately capture well the history of World War II.
I have no idea how to bring this to a light close of things.
Yeah, we've been talking about Nazis for ages.
Nazis and stuff. Sorry about that.
You'd think we were obsessed.
That's the
Well,
news.
there is always huge interest in the Nazis. So
It's going to be
If
driving
only we
the
had
History
an
Channel and the Learning
amusingly
Channel in the
shaped
next 50
vegetable
years.
that we could show to the audience and say, and meanwhile in other news, a potato that looks like a pineapple.
How's the economy doing?
We'll talk about that next week. That's all the Nazi talk for now. See you next week on the news.